To start off our conversation, Ms. Marikar, before we get into post-election export policy, can you share with us how this has been impacting national growth, focusing on exporters as well?
See, it is a fact that Sri Lankan, if you talk about Sri Lankan exports, it has been stagnant for the past many years. So during the past 10 to 15 years, around 13 years, Sri Lankan exports has been hovering within the range of 13 billion US dollars. Right now, we don't need to go back into the past. We need to look how we can move forward in the future. We need to recognize and appreciate the Sri Lankan exporters, the fact that they have managed to sustain themselves throughout all these adversities. Especially this government is talking a lot about that because we need that foreign currency reserves increasing. However, we are concerned that despite this goal, we haven't seen any concrete actions introduced to implement effective policies. In contrast, if you look at our neighboring countries, they have already put their house in order. Their plans are set and they are into action. They are moving ahead, leaving us behind. So one of the biggest challenges we face is the frequent changes in policies whenever government changes. So this inconsistencies makes it difficult for our exporters to plan and grow. We have the potential to go much higher. We have the potential to do much better and bring that prosperity to our nation.
The presidential elections are looming ever closer, and the focus on policy making, especially concerning exports, is imminent. We spoke about all of this and more with Shiham Marikar. Stay tuned.
Some bonds give more returns. Get more security and more interest on your fixed deposits from Sri Lanka's largest finance company, LMDtv Finance.
The latest issue of LMD is available at lmdmall.lk as well as selected supermarkets and bookshops. You can also access the digital version on WhatsApp and our social media platforms.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. The topic of conversation today is post-election export policy, and we have with us the Secretary General and CEO of the National Chamber of Exporters of Sri Lanka, Shiham Marikar. Mr. Marikar, it's lovely to have you on our show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on board.
To start off our conversation, Mr. Marikar, before we get into post-election export policy, I'd like to get your views on this economic stagnation that we've been experiencing in Sri Lanka in the last few years. Can you share with us how this has been impacting national growth, focusing on exporters as well?
Yes. So, see, it is a fact that Sri Lankan, if you talk about Sri Lankan exports, it has been stagnant for the past many years. And there are, key attributes towards this. I'll just try to highlight some. So during the past 10 to 15 years, around 13 years, Sri Lankan exports has been hovering within the range of 13 billion US dollars. Whereas if you look at our neighboring countries, they have gone 10 times higher than Sri Lanka. Having said that, we must also take to note that we are a country that experienced a 35-year-old war, right? We had the devastating tsunami. Then we had the Easter bombings. We had the COVID-19 impact that was on, the whole world. Then, of course, followed by that, we had our political and our financial instabilities. But I think right now, we don't need to go back into the past. We need to look how we can move forward in the future. We need to recognize and appreciate the Sri Lankan exporters, the fact that they have managed to sustain themselves throughout all these, adversities. So now we need to build on their resilience, fostering hope and determination. So we have the potential to go much higher. We have the potential to do much better and bring that prosperity to our nation.
And talking of future forwardness and looking into the future, the topic of the day or topic of the month, I would say, are of course the presidential elections, and it's looming very close. And the focus on policy making for the country's future is significant. given that Sri Lanka is always focused on being an export-oriented economy, what should the general strategy be like regarding forward policy?
Well, I think even this present government or the previous government, they were talking about making Sri Lanka export-driven economy. Especially this government is talking a lot about that because we need that, foreign currency reserves increasing. However, we are concerned that despite this goal, we haven't seen any concrete actions introduced to, implement effective policies. I mean, now I know the government has involved in restructuring the Export Development Board, the Board of Investment, and the Department of Commerce, but progress has been very slow, and we are losing valuable time. In contrast, if you look at our neighboring countries, they have already put their house in order. Their plans are set and they are into action. They are moving ahead, leaving us behind. So one of the biggest challenges we face is the frequent changes in policies whenever government changes. So this inconsistencies makes it difficult for our exporters to plan and grow. So, which in turn are creating a negative impact for them to have a competitive advantage and to, fight in the global market. So to move forward, we need to focus on creating stable and consistent policies that don't change with every new government. This will give our exporters the confidence to invest and expand. Additionally, we need to speed up the decision-making process, and we need to fully empower organizations like the EDB, the BOI, even the Department of Commerce to lead the charge in boosting exports. So we have the potential to become a top export-driven economy, but we need to have all those things that I said in place, and we should not waste time in still talking about it. We need to have it. It should have been introduced a couple of years ago. But anyway, now looking at forward, let us get this on board and start moving ahead.
Coming into the most important question that I have for you today, the NC we saw recently submitted, recommendations to presidential candidates covering what the export sector really needs in terms of forward policy for the country. Can you share with us, Mr. Marikar, some salient points from this submission?
Now, from our side as a chamber, we have a little more than 500 members covering almost all production and service sectors. So we conducted a survey among them, asked them what are the concerns they have and what kind of change they will need in the future. And we put together a summarized 12-point export policy document, which we are in the process of handing over to the presidential candidates. We have already handed out a few, and we are going to talk to others as well and officially hand this over to them. Just to highlight some of the points that we have in the policy, the first thing is we have requested the government to fast track the implementation of the critical trade facilitation measures, because this will reduce the time and cost for exporter to engage in international trade. It will simplify matters and it will streamline, it will make things automated, and the procedures will be very clear, transparent, and predictable. So we have made that request as our number one point in our policy document. And also we have asked the government to fast track the automation of all border agencies. We want to come them on board into a platform called the single window. This is there in many other countries. Now, a single window platform will simplify international trade by allowing traders to submit all required documents and information online to a single entry point. It will make things easier. And also the government will benefit by introducing this single window in terms of efficient resource allocation, better tax revenue tracking. So if you look at Sri Lanka, we actually started talking about this single window concept during 1990s. But up to date, many years have gone. We have showed very slow progress. I mean, over 3 decades, if you really look at it, over the past 3 decades, only 2 or 3 agencies have come on board up to this digital platform, whereas we have around 47 or 50 agencies that have to come on board. But if you look at countries like India, which started way after us, already around 60 agencies have come on board to this single window. So we are very slow in that area also. We need to, get that thing moving fast. Then we also mentioned in our policy paper on this subject called simplified value-added tax. This was introduced a couple of years ago, where the exporters were uh, required to fill in this paperwork where they don't have to pay upfront VAT. Now, this gave some sort of advantage for the exporter in terms of their cash flow. But now we heard that the government is going to remove this SVAT component. Now, our argument is if the government is going to remove the SVAT component, to please make sure there is a robust VAT refund system introduced by the relevant departments. Now, we have not seen this assurance given to us, and we fear that if the SVAT is removed without having a robust refund mechanism, exporters are going to face a lot of delays in getting their refunds, which has been the case. There are billions of rupees where exporters have to get before this SVAT was introduced. Now we are going to go back to the same method, and this is going to demotivate and also have a huge negative impact on the exporters' cash flow. So this is also a policy that we have introduced through our policy paper. Also, we have asked the government to have a plan to establish eco-industrial parks in Sri Lanka. Now, there's an increased demand throughout the world on firms to be socially and environmentally compliant in their production. Now, this compliance has become mandatory and is monitored across the entire supply chain. So, investment zones are gearing up to enable companies to meet higher environmental and social standards. So, eco-industrial parks are emerging as a response to these environmental and economic challenges. So, we are discussing with the government. We have been seizing our policy paper, and we are encouraging the government to look at introducing more eco-industrial parks here in Sri Lanka. Then another concern that we raised is with regards to the subject called the Madrid Protocol. Now, Sri Lankan exporters, when they want to register their brand overseas to safeguard their brand, they need to register country by country, which means they have to spend, cost-wise, it is very high. It is really time-consuming. Whereas if Sri Lanka can get into this concept called the Madrid Protocol, it makes things easy. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there are around 100 odd countries that have registered under this Madrid Protocol. So if Sri Lanka, with just one entry, they can get their trademark registered in all these countries, which will save them cost and money. Now, here also, we have been talking about, entering into the Madrid Protocol, I think since 2016. It has been very slow. Nothing has been happening. But if you look at our neighboring countries, they are already on board. There are about 114 countries, if I'm not mistaken, who have joined the Madrid Protocol, including countries like, Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan. They are all our competitors. So we are very slow in this area also. So these are some of the concerns, and we have converted them into policies, and we have included these into our policy document. But there are 12 all in all. We will share that with you all in the near future.
You spoke a lot about, facing and navigating through the competition, actually differentiating ourselves. I also want to talk about, like, while we are, facilitating exports, like what you were talking about, how much of collaboration should be happening between the exporters, or I would say between the private sector and the government sector, in terms of making sure that these policies will be put into practice without, kind of keeping it in the books.
Yeah, since you asked this question, this is also in our policy paper. Now we have proposed the government to provide opportunities for the private sector to comment on proposed draft policies and laws that impact the private sector operations, because we have noticed a lot of ad hoc policies have come into play, and they are inconsistent, and sometimes they become critical bottlenecks, discouraging investment, and also undermining the Sri Lankan exporters' ability to succeed in the international markets. So, as example, the 180-day foreign currency, conversion policy that was introduced. Now, we do understand at that time we needed the US dollars, so there was a need for that. But it had a negative effect, especially on The exporters, when they want to import raw materials, they didn't have the required foreign currency. And now, since we are talking about having, you could say, our foreign currency reserves have increased, we don't see the need to continue this. Then, of course, about the policy that was brought in terms of chemical fertilizers, and that had a huge negative impact, especially for the tea exporters. And we have data to show that tea exports reduced during that time. So what we are requesting the government is, before they make these policies, to consult with the private sector, consult with the chambers and associations, get their participation. They will be able to provide ground level situations, especially if those policies are, coming into play. So we have made this also as a request that in the future, allow the exporters to comment, allow the exporters to come and share their views, and give them time to study these proposals, because we suddenly see these proposals coming overnight. And when exporter goes to a relevant, agency or a government office, they've been told that there's been a new policy introduced, and that has come in last night. So these are making our exporters demotivated. So we don't want that. A proper consultation between the private and public sector will really do good for both parties.
I think my next question is going to sound a little bit repetitive, because you were talking about the measures that is included in the policy paper that you submitted. But if I can ask you again to highlight, what are the most crucial measures that need to be facilitated to improve international trade? I mean, you spoke of single window, you spoke of eco export parks. If you were to say the three top things that are most crucial to facilitate trade, what would they be?
Well, there are actually, many areas, not 3, 4, there are about 20, 30, but, we need to look at both sides. The situation the government is facing and what we are going through. But since you asked this question, I would like to also highlight the role played by the Sri Lankan foreign diplomats, or the Sri Lankan missions that are placed overseas. Now we have around 52 Sri Lankan missions overseas, and we feel that the trade officers in these countries should play a enhanced role. They need to provide more information to the Sri Lankan exporters, which could be very useful, new market trends, what are the standards and certifications those countries are asking for, what are the new needs that are emerging. These kind of information should be provided on a regular form to the Sri Lankan exporters, because this will be highly beneficial. Also, we have proposed in our policy paper to the government to have trade promotion officers. Now, if you take countries like Malaysia, they have something called the MATRADE. They are based here in Sri Lanka. Then Australia, they have something called the Austrade. South Korea, they have an organization called KOTRA. Now, these agencies are based here in Sri Lanka, and they gather information on the Sri Lankan market conditions and provide their businesses in their respective countries. And, it makes things easier for them to do business here in Sri Lanka. So we have made a request through our policy paper to the government to have these kind of trade promotion, organizations, and also to strengthen our foreign missions, especially the commercial officer, to engage more with the trade and to provide a lot of assistance to the Sri Lankan exporters.
It's time to take a very short break, but we'll soon be back to talk more about post-election export policy.
What makes a truly awesome insurance company? Is it the skills to manage big numbers and big responsibilities? Well, that's definitely part of it. But there's more. It's the people. They're awesome. Super passionate about looking out for others and putting in their time for people's finances. It's not just the people. It's how we do things that's awesome. From being trendsetters of the industry to being connectors or inventors. It's about well-being and how we achieve it. Our teams hustle non-stop to meet the needs of the people. That's why we're on the rise. But it's not just about how we do things either. It's about how we improve things. Helping our clients thrive in a world that's full of awesome goals to achieve. Making the maximum out of the minimum. But wait, there's more to it. There's one last thing that truly makes an insurance company awesome. It's that we care about our people and our customers. All of this combined, it's been a pretty awesome year. And we're excited for tomorrow.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
Welcome back to the show. We're talking about post-election export policy with Shiham Marikar, the Secretary General and CEO of the National Chamber of Exporters of Sri Lanka. Mr. Marikar, talking about what exporters face, I mean, you a lot of challenges that they face, I think, on the home front in terms of policy inconsistencies and unfavorable policies, to name just a few. If you look at the macro picture, like you were mentioning, fierce competition. If you look at the global and the regional picture, what are the macro level challenges that exporters have to navigate at present?
Yeah, well, so I would like to highlight one more issue that is faced a lot by the Sri Lankan export, especially our manufacturing, companies, is the shortage of skilled and unskilled workers. This is becoming a main concern. Now, we have discussed this matter with the Ministry of Labour and with various other stakeholders. We have even gone to the extent of requesting them to allow the exporters to import labor. I know these are very sensitive subjects, especially when we try to discuss this with the presidential candidates. They don't want to talk that much about it, but this is a pressing issue, and a lot of people are leaving the country because of the problems they are facing here. So this is also creating a lot of problems for the exporters. Also, getting female workers on board. Now, in Sri Lanka, we have seen a very low percentage of females working, especially in industries and export-oriented companies. And I think we have given a proposal to the government here where we have requested them to introduce a state-funded maternity leave benefit. Now, this is practiced by many countries. There are about 130 countries around the world who have introduced state-funded, state-funded maternity leave benefits. I mean, companies today, when they want to recruit a female worker, they have this fear when they want to take their maternity leave, the company has to bear the cost on this, and there is nothing coming in return. So if the state can come on board, this will encourage more export-oriented companies to get more female workers on board. So this could be seen as a solution to some of this problem, and the problem of shortage of workers. Then also another policy level matter, I would say, is data. We lack proper data to make decisions. For example, now as a chamber, we do a lot of programs in various regions. We have identified a lot of talent, lot of raw materials, lot of products that can be supplied to the exporter. But this information is not available. There is no online platform or a website where an exporter can gather this information. So having proper data fed into a common place which could be used by the exporters will become very useful. So I think we have put this also into our platform, into our proposal, and hope that the government will look into it. Another matter that we have suggested in our policy paper is there's something called the Exporters Forum that is taking place on a monthly basis, which is headed by the Export Development Board. I mean, the chairman of the EDB is heading this, and also the Minister of International Trade attends these meetings. Now, we feel that this forum gives the exporter an ideal opportunity to voice out the concerns, especially the concerns that they face with the government agencies. So at these forums, we have noticed the senior member of that particular government agency is also called, and the exporter is also invited, where they discuss these issues, and the decision that is being taken and implemented is very fast. Having said that, this forum that is supposed to happen every month does not happen every month. We saw a huge lapse I mean, we saw a lapse of, I think, 2 or 3 years, and then suddenly they will have it in a month, and again it takes 3 months. But since recently we have noticed this forum it has started again, and we see a lot of good things happening there. And our request for the government is whoever the future presidential candidate to make sure that this continues on a monthly basis, because it's a huge benefit for the exporters, and especially for us as chambers. When our members tell us the concerns, the issues that they face, we coordinate with the Ministry of Industry, Ministry of International Trade, the Export Development Board, and then these are discussed at this so-called exporters forum, which we feel is a good thing, and we want it to continue.
Ms. Marika, you mentioned about the challenges that exporters have to face, internally and of course externally as well, in their journey towards actually successfully overcoming these challenges. What is the role that the government, and of course led by the new president, what is the role that they should play to support exporters navigate these challenges successfully?
Yes, I think a very important question. I think what the exporters are looking at is a strong leadership focusing on exports, and also to ensure that the ministerial portfolios, their functions, and those institutions fall under a very well formulated, rational, logistic manner. We sometimes see certain agencies come under different ministries. Due to that, there are weaknesses in communications, and a lot of delays are happening. So we are requesting the government to make sure that there is a proper system, a proper logical method in setting up agencies and the ministerial portfolios. And also, we are requesting that there are, I mean, competent, I don't know whether I should use the word competent, or, sound-minded officials who are in these departments. Because sometimes we feel when we go to discuss certain concerns of the exporters, these officers have no idea what we are talking about. And in some cases, suddenly there are changes happening, and when a new person coming, we have to go and provide some sort of a tuition class, from A to Z once again. I mean, these are all timely. It takes a lot of time, when you talk about time and delays, these are adding to the cost of the exporter. And the Sri Lankan exporters are already now, they are working on very thin margins. They can't afford to lose money in these areas. So these are the support we need to get from the government headed by the president with very strong policies.
Ms. Marika, in conclusion, I mean, we covered a lot of points in terms of challenges, overcoming challenges, and of course, focused on the NC submission to presidential candidates on forward policy. If I would ask you, how urgent is the need to really create a supportive environment for exporters? It's important, but if we can stress on the urgency of the matter, what would you say?
Yeah, so with the elections around the corner, the exporters are hoping that whoever comes to power will focus more on increasing exports, and also increasing the number of exporters. So a strong leadership, and also appointing of highly competent and able officers at various departments that play an important role in policy making for the exporters should be in place. And they need to work on removing so many red tapes that are in place now and streamlining the process. We have to look very seriously on bribery and corruption, and make it a very transparent process where the exporters could function without any hassle, and introduce incentives to encourage and motivate the exporter to engage more on research and development, so that they could introduce new products and increase our product basket, and also make it more easier for companies to look at exports as their future, as we need more exporters in the country.
Ms. Marika, we've been talking about a lot of important points, and we covered a lot. But you mentioned something about the availability of data that made me think of my next question. Like data, and like an online platform to find data is a significant need. In addition to things like that, if we talk of trade infrastructure in general, I know we have certain gaps in the country, in terms of our infrastructure that impedes exporters, and doesn't really facilitate trade. How urgent and how important is it for Sri Lanka to maintain efficient trade infrastructure, and how can this be expedited?
Well, I think we need to continuously invest in improving our, ports, customs, like I said earlier, trade facilitation. We need to keep on improving these things because exports are poised to improve. It will increase because we can't be stagnant at 13 billion because we have to start paying our debt in a couple of years' time. So, I mean, of course, we know that tourism is bringing some money to the country. We have the foreign workers remittance, but exports will be the key because that it's not only related to bringing in the foreign currency, it creates a lot of job, investments. There are a lot of good things. So I think continuous investing on our ports, on our customs, on our terminals, then also looking at our other logistics side. Now we are talking about Sri Lankan railway. How much of our Sri Lankan railways used to transport goods from the regions? I mean, raw materials. It's a very cost effective method, but there is no improvements happening in those areas. So for us to be competitive, we need to look at those areas, especially the ports, then the logistics side.
We've been talking with the Secretary General and the CEO of the National Chamber of Exporters of Sri Lanka, Shiham Marikar. That's a very good note to finish this conversation with Ms. Marikar. It's been a lovely, a very insightful conversation, and I really hope that we see these recommendations in practice, in action soon with the newly elected president. So thank you very much once again for being part of our show. It was lovely to have you with us.
Thank you very much for having me on board. And I think LMD as a publication and your digital TV, you all are actually doing a very good job in creating awareness, not only of concerns, of the good things you all are promoting the country. And here through this interview, you all are highlighting some of the concerns faced by the exporters, who are actually the heroes of this country. We need them to do well and bring in that foreign currency to our country and make this once again a prosperous island. So thank you very much to LMD for having me on board and wish you guys all the best.
And thank you to all our viewers for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. Thank you for watching and stay safe.